Which touring motorcycle can make a saddle sore challenge look easy, doesn't cost as much as a student loan, but has the juice to ditch traffic like it was your in-laws? To answer that question, I test rode a 650, 800 and even a few 1000cc tourers in the past few months, until 900cc tourers caught my attention. Each has a slightly different blend of performance, character, comfort, and associated costs. The Yamaha Tracer 9 GT that, at least for now, coexists with the Plus trim in the US and the UK. Triumph has two official trims, the Tiger 900 GT and the GT Pro, which is the one I test rode at Daytona Beach, Florida. And the BMW F900 XR has an enticing base price tag, but I rode it in a fully spec'd out trim, courtesy expertly trained sales professionals. If you look at the starting prices, the BMW is the cheapest. The top trim price comparison pegs the Triumph as the most expensive one in the US, while the Tracer 9 GT Plus commands top dollar in Australia and the UK. The important question is, what type of performance do we get for the price? On paper, the Tracer 9 GT has the strongest engine, but I wanted to go fancy after test riding a V-Strom 650 earlier that morning. Switching up to a BMW F900 XR top trim demo bike with a bigger engine and an upmarket badge had the potential to make me hover over Japanese peasants. But no matter how much I tried to like my invisible cloak of opulence, the 99 claimed German horses felt like they might have been undernourished or double counted. I took it to the highway and tried to click in a few quick ones, but the standard quick shifter felt like kicking a stubborn mule. Once I reached a stoplight, finding neutral was harder than finding Nemo. I started doubting my experience in 15 years of touring, 5 years of track, and half a day of mule kicking, and wondered if it gets better over time. But ownership reviews I watched later suggested that it doesn't always get better, and the clutch lever could end up being your best friend. The Tiger 900 GT Pro was next. 106 British horses in the T-plane engine felt a lot healthier. Personally, I wasn't bothered by the vibrations and can totally see myself riding it all day as long as the weather conditions are as cheerful as the British winter. Unfortunately, Night King won't make it in Florida, where I discovered a hidden feature of the Tiger engine. It doubles up as a portable toaster for your legs every time you hit traffic. It does get better when you maintain highway pace, but now you dread going back into the town. The quick shifter is standard on the Pro trim and worked a lot better than the Beamer. Spirited riding is quite enjoyable on the Tiger, and quite honestly, it seemed like a pretty good option to the sensible me. But the 80s schoolboy in me was craving for a little more excitement. After all, a Yamaha XSR 900 is my personal street bike. Its looks and engine character invokes nostalgia for me, but there's one minor flaw. Every time I ride it, she reminds me that my back, wrist, neck, and a lot of other parts are a lot older than what I see in the mirror. So a Tracer 9 GT seemed like a sign from the gods. Luckily, a friend of mine bought one and let me test ride it not once, but twice. Compared to the other two 900s, it almost felt like riding a whole different class of motorcycles. In fact, riding with a bunch of multi-stratas in the group, I was pleasantly surprised that the Tracer 9 GT didn't feel like it was out of its depth. The power is just enough for fast-paced touring, but Yamaha has managed to rein it in just enough to stop you from teasing your guardian angel. The Yamaha Triple is perceivably smoother than the other two, but has a characterful rumble to it. The quick shifter is worthy of the rave media reviews, but I found the clutch friction zone to be a bit vague. I had to release it a lot more than my XSR before it made contact and started to move. It wasn't my bike, so I didn't try to adjust the clutch cable, but seems like other owners have also pointed out the same behavior. Full disclosure, both the Tracer and the XSR do have a tendency to get a bit warm in stop-go traffic, but it's not as bad as the Tiger. But what about vanity metrics? To me, the BMW F900 XR is the most handsome of the three. The Tiger front does look better than the Tracer, but overall, I would rate the Tracer right behind the BMW on looks. Of course, looks and exhaust notes are subjective and even immature to compare for touring bikes. But this part of the video is dedicated to the 12-year-old in all of us. Alright, silly comparisons out of the way, let's get serious about suspension, brakes and tires. The Tracer 9 GT and GT Plus both get the exact same semi-active suspension. The Tiger 900 GT suspension is manually adjustable front and back. The base trim Beamer only gets rear adjustability. The GT Pro and fully spec'd XR get electronic adjustability in the rear, but even in the top trim, the Beamer is devoid of front adjustability. Surprisingly, BMW's dynamic ESA rear and non-adjustable front were the sportiest of the lot. And being a track day junkie, that was my favorite suspension setup. But if I consciously analyze them from a touring perspective, the Triumph suspension felt more comfort biased and perfect for relaxed riding. Plus, you get the convenience of electronic rear suspension adjustability. The Tracer's semi-active suspension is definitely touring biased, no matter what they say about one of them being sport setting, because I tried both modes. And that's not a bad thing. Just don't be misled into believing that the Tracer can carve canyons like a sport bike. As much as I'm not a fan of a computer adjusting suspension damping without my consent, I truly appreciated it on broken roads and the shocking absence of brake dive under hard braking. Tracer brakes have a progressive bite, which makes sense for a tourer, but the brake feel wasn't anywhere close to the Brembos on the Tiger, which is my favorite braking system in terms of bite as well as feel. The BMW brakes are decent, but do remind you that not all Brembo brakes are necessarily top shelf. The front brakes are pretty average. In fact, some owners experienced issues with the rear brake fading and needing to be pushed too far down before it bites, which starts to make you squint at the King's invisibility cloak. Tracer and Tiger base trims have lean-sensitive ABS. On the Beamer, that additional safety is an extra. Thankfully, UBS or a front and rear linked braking system is a standard feature on all trims, as it should be. Please don't let manufacturers tell you that it's a premium feature. 150cc Honda scooters used to have that as a marketing flex back when Michael Jackson would still beat it. The party trick Yamaha does bring to the table is a radar-linked braking system, which makes sense in theory, but it got mixed reviews. Most outlets are reassuring everyone that it will not brake on its own and only add more braking force if the rider is not applying sufficient braking input. And now I'm squinting and puckering up where you can't see. So I downloaded the 2024 Yamaha Tracer 9 GT Plus owner's manual, only to find 2 pages full of warnings about the things it cannot do and conditions in which it shouldn't be trusted. Ironically, the most reassuring thing I found was that you can turn it off. All 3 bikes have pretty good tires for street touring purposes. The Yamaha and the BMW have 17-inch wheels front and back, and my preferred choice of tire size. But the S21s are more confidence-inspiring on the curves than the T32s and the Tracer. The Tiger with a 19-inch front wheel and a 10x90 Metzeler front tire did not feel like it was impeding front end feel or my ability to flick it into a turn. Despite being heavier than the Tracer 9 GT, it felt surprisingly nimble on the go. Another pleasant surprise was the center stand design of the BMW F900 XR, which felt shockingly easier than a 150cc motorcycle I rode back in 2008. I also conducted a sophisticated scientific test to ensure none of the bikes felt more top heavy than I could handle. All 3 bikes have similar seat height adjustability, but at 5'8" with a 29-inch inseam, I couldn't flatfoot any of them. The Tracer GT Plus is 10mm taller than the GT and the seat is wide. On the GT, I barely made it to 60 miles before my buns had enough and I crowned it the least comfortable touring seat ever. Tiger seat was much better and the F900 XR seat was surprisingly comfortable thanks to the support from the race passenger seat. But I want to be clear that in all of these bikes you're gonna need aftermarket solutions for a legitimate road trip or you will be sore in the saddle well before making it to any distance worth bragging about. And before I talk about the rider's triangle and the windshields, if you like this 15-minute video that took me 2 weeks to put together, please share it with your motorcycle friends and spread the joy. Speaking of joy, the Triumph riding position was my favorite among the 3. You feel like you're sitting in the bike as opposed to on top of the bike. The second reason was the windshield that did a better job than the other 2, at least for my height and torso dimensions. The bend in the knee was also slightly better. Unfortunately, I've lost the footage to where I'm mounting the Tiger, but you can see the BMW and Tracer riders triangle being slightly sports biased. Interestingly, even though the F900 XR had a short sports windshield, it worked surprisingly well for its size. The Tracer 9 GT windshield was the reason I test rode the bike twice. It is pretty easy to adjust up and down, but test ride number 1 was on an exceptionally windy day. In the high position, the windshield became a sail. In the low position, the sailor became the sail of this sailboat. So I rode it again on a normal day with better results. But there's no way around the fact that the stock windshield of the Tracer is its worst attribute. Further research of ownership videos suggested that the Tracer GT Plus is no different in that regard. Even when you compare all the other accessories, the Tiger gets the most adjustability and Yamaha is still stingy about adjustable clutch levers. If you want those comforts on the Beamer, you need the premium pack in the US, and even then a lot of the accessories are optional extras on top of the packages. The Tiger 900 GT Pro is the most loaded with standard accessories, but even the last gen Tracer 9 GT has it beat with electronics. Yamaha and Triumph base models have cruise control as standard and 4 riding modes. Lean sensitive ABS is a standard feature as well. I do not mind the Tracer 9 GT split dash, but I did miss phone connectivity for navigation, which is standard on the other two. But the GT Plus now has a very convenient USB charging port and phone connection for navigation, phone, and media. The downside is you need to subscribe to a paid Garmin navigation service. No thank you, I'm gonna use free Google Maps on my phone. But then it has radar-linked adaptive cruise control that neither of the other two have. As much as I appreciate the convenience of it, it is not an important differentiator to me, especially in pursuit of not just the best bike, but the best trim worth my hard-earned money. Which brings me to gas money. Yamaha claims 47 mpg US, but on both my test rides, I got low 40s, riding rather enthusiastically. My friend who has owned and ridden the Tracer about 4,000 miles now claims 44 mpg, which is consistent with other owners on Fuely.com. Triumph's official claims seems to be more conservative than what the owners are reporting online. But the F900 XR's official claim seems to be off by a lot if the users are to be believed. Interestingly, the fuel tank sizes vary, but the estimated range seems to be similar. I would take it with a pinch of salt and start looking for a fuel station well before the 200-mile mark. All 3 bikes have high compression engines, but only Yamaha recommends octane 93 in the US. Internationally, that's RON 95. As per manufacturer recommendations, the Tiger and the XR seem to run fine on 87 or RON 91, which is great because that's easier to find when you're touring in most countries. Another area where the Europeans fare better are the regular service intervals, which are less frequent, at least in North America. But the Yamaha has the longest valve clearance interval, which is great because that's the one that costs a mortgage payment. Triumph and BMW also come with a longer warranty than the Yamaha. As you process that, I would like to share that in 15 years of owning Japanese bikes, I have toured with Hondas for thousands of miles. I wring its neck until my track-only Kawasaki threatens to kill me, and my Yamaha XSR 900 turned out to be a goon. And not once have I needed a warranty-related repair. So the longer warranty on the Triumph and BMW is more of an eligibility criterion for the discerning and seasoned riders. I will link the videos where BMW owners talk about their satisfaction with warranty repairs. My friends have owned Triumph motorcycles for years now, and their perception of Triumph reliability definitely seems to be better than all other European manufacturers, if not as good as Japanese counterparts. And if you have owned any of these motorcycles or their past models, please share your ownership experience in the comments and help others in the motorcycle community. To summarize each bike, the BMW is the best handling bike among the 3, and for those of you who are satisfied with the power it makes, it is a pretty decent option. I would only recommend 2 things for you to consider if you love the Beamer. 1, you don't have to get sucked into the premium packages. You can buy the base model and only pay for specific OEM electronic options you absolutely need. For accessories, you may be better off going aftermarket both for quality and value for money. And number 2, extended warranty. For love of Claudia Schiffer, that is the last thing you want to skimp on with a BMW. When it comes to comfort, the Tiger 900 GT Pro felt like the best among all the touring bikes I've ridden this past year. It does lack the pep relative to the Tracer, but I have a hunch that an exhaust upgrade and a talented engine tuner could help reduce the gap between the power it makes and the power I crave. But that needs more research before I get my hopes up. Between the trims, I would probably buy the Tiger 900 GT Pro for the sheer joy of electronic suspension adjustability on my command. The Yamaha Tracer 9 GT to me delivers better value for money than the GT Plus, since I can't justify $2,000 for the new dash, adaptive cruise control, and a paid navigation service. The most exciting engine character, fairly comfortable riding position, and a very good pack of standard accessories make the GT a very good sports touring bike. And if you're lucky, you might find one for a better price than the rest. It does have some quirks like the bun squishing seat and a windshield as sturdy as a sapling in a hurricane, but you could potentially fix those with aftermarket solutions or just learn to live with it like other owners have done for love of that sweet engine. By the way, low beam on one side and high beam on the other also looks weird to some, unless of course one is into chicks with a permanent wink. If you would rather watch motorcycle shootouts instead of keeping up with the Kardashians, watch these touring motorcycle comparisons I did before I rode the 900s. This is Faraz conducting motorcycle dance-offs one video at a time.